Willie and Daddy. So, you guys just have to bear with this. Call my daddy, daddy, so I'm just gonna say daddy. I need to sit down or stand
No,
up.
I have a wireless mic if you want to wear it.
Would it help? Okay.
It might help the recording quality.
Okay. Okay. So Daddy was born, and Daddy, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
One of the 13 of them.
There were 13 of you in all?
He joined the 5 boys.
8 girls and 5 boys. Okay. And you were all born in and around in the Delta part of Mississippi?
No, in the hills.
Okay, see, I had that wrong. Mississippi is divided into 2 parts. They call it the Delta and the hills. The Delta is really a Delta part, and the hills is where Daddy was raised and where I was. When I think about Mississippi, this is what the hills is part of where I was raised, where I lived most of the time. Daddy, when you were a young child, what plan? Now, one of the things to note is that Daddy's family were sharecroppers. We have other family members who were, but Daddy's side of Daddy's father was not as well off, and so he was trying to accrue some wealth. And you're part of a story about what happened when he had acquired some things. But so Daddy lived on a plantation all of his childhood life, and so I was going to ask Daddy about plantation living. I remember you talking about living on the plantation, Daddy, and everything was on the plantation.
Yeah, everything was on the plantation, and people that lived on the plantation, they had stoves and clothes and stuff like that, and grocery stores. But you didn't have to go off the plantation to get anything.
So you brought your clothes, you brought your food, they brought the
flowers and everything
was on the plantation.
On the plantation. You didn't have to move off to go in place. And they had a big gate up there where you couldn't get out when you wanted to.
Oh, so
as far as you could go, because they had everything on the plantation that you really needed. And the man that owned the place, he didn't want you to go off that nowhere else to get nothing nowhere else. So he was penting for a while there. So my dad, the first crop he sharecropped it there with him.
Who was this with, Daddy?
This was Clyde Maxwell.
With Clyde Maxwell?
A man called Clyde Maxwell. He was sharecropping now with him, and that year, my dad, I think we made about 18 bales of cotton, and we picked all that cotton by hand. And that year we made potatoes. Well, we done pretty good that year, my dad said, and the next year, my dad decided he'd move off of this plantation to another plantation.
Can I ask you what all did Papa Caesar have? I call my grandfather Papa Caesar. What all did he have at that time?
Well, at that time, we had mules, 3 mules, and about 18 or 20 head of cows, and hogs and chickens and things like that.
And you had a garden too, did you?
We had a garden.
And you had smoked meat in the smokehouse?
Smoked meat in the smokehouse. And my dad decided he'd move that next year. And my dad went over to this other man's place, and he told him, say, well, I believe I'm going to move out from over there this year, and I'm going to move down here with you this year. So my dad and me was on the wagon, and we was going to move away from that year. And we was going to move away from that year. And my dad told him, say, well, who you going to move with? He said, I'm going to move over to we got to get it together. Hubbard Browning's place. Got to call Hubbard Browning. He was a white man too. And while we were waiting at the track to go across the railroad track, it's a car drove up, which was Mr. Clyde Maxwell, and his son, and another guy. Well, I was about 10 years old, and I was up on the wagon. And
This means it was about 1933 or so.
33. And he told me that, he said, well, I said, where are you moving to, Caesar? He said, I'm moving over to Mr. Bryant's. He said, well, said, I don't see why you think you're going to take that wagon with you, because that wagon belongs to me. He said, it don't belong to you, dude. He said, I paid you 3 bales of cotton. I was supposed to pay you for this rental this year. He said, no, say, you didn't get through paying me. Say, all you got won't pay me. Say, get off of that wagon and say, I want you to walk that way. Get off the wagon, leave the wagon, because the wagon belongs to me and everything on the wagon. My dad got on off the wagon, and he told him, said, well, say, that's all to it. Say, you got to go. Then I got off the wagon, and I went back home, and I told the mama, I said, Mama, Mr. Clyde took Daddy's wagon. She said, took the wagon? He said, yeah. And I said, he told him, say, everything he had, wouldn't pay him. Well, my mama got hot then. She come up, she started talking. She told him, say, well, say, you know Caesar don't owe you anything. So he paid you that 3 bales of cotton. And so he got a right to move if he want to move. And he said, well, so he can move, but he ain't going to move nothing away from here. I said, no corn, no syrups, no chickens, no hogs, no cows, no nothing. See, I don't want him to take nothing away from him but his little Negro. Well, Mama started crying. She started cussing about it. And my old sister, she told her, Mama said, ain't nothing that you can do about it. Say, we'll just wait till Papa sends somebody here to get us. So Papa went on over there to the other man's place, and he told him, said, well, said, Mr. Clyde done took everything I had. Said I owed him a back debt. So Mr. Hubbard told him, say, well, Caesar, you know how to deal with him. If he say you owe him, you owe him.
Mr. Herbert's another white man.
He's another, this on another plantation. So if he say you owe him, you owe him, see. Said, I'll just send some wagons over there and move your belongings from over there. Well, he sent away 3 wagons over there. And he thought we was going to get the cows and things, and hogs and other stuff. But we didn't get nothing but our bed things and chairs and beds and things like that. They even took the dog. Papa had a good dog. He took him too. So we didn't have anything.
Why did you take the dog, Daddy?
The dog was a good, you've heard of tree dogs. Dogs treeing possums, coons, and stuff like that. He said, well, I don't keep the dog. He said, that's a good dog. Said, I'm going to keep him too. Well, he took the dog too. So we all got on the wagon and we moved on over to the other plantation.
Did y'all get to shuck corn or anything? So
Oh, yeah, we shelled corn. Our mama made us shell corn all that night and put in the bed ticks. At that time, you had bed ticks.
there was some mattresses.
It was the mattress. They made that mattress, you know, and you would put shucks in them. We stripped them shucks down and take them knots out of them and cut them up and put them in them ticks for insulation to make the bed so. We made up a good bed. It was a good bed. You slept in it. And
But y'all shelled corn all night long.
we shelled corn all night until them wagons come that morning and put in sacks and things in. And we drug it out and put it over in those wagons so we'd have bread to eat. But he took all our syrups and things like that. And that's the story of that.
Okay. 3 years later, Daddy was out riding a mule, working with a mule, and he fell and or something happened and he hurt his leg. Can you tell us that story?
Well, we was on Mr. Hubbard's place now. Mr. Hubbard, we was really gonna share crop with him that year. Work halves, you know. He take half and I take half. Papa took half. Well, we worked, I was 13 years old then. And Mr. Hinkin, he had a horse there. And he wanted me to ride that horse and kind of break him, you know, like you break in horses riding them, you know, when they're young horses. Well, I took that horse and I took him around there, and I rode him around there. He didn't think I could ride him, because he was a bucking horse, you know. He had a good saddle, and I put that saddle on him. He said, "You think you can ride that horse?" I said, "I'm going to ride it." Well, I rode him that day. It was on a Saturday. I never will forget that. It was on a Saturday, and that Sunday, I was going to ride him that Sunday, and it come a rain that Sunday. After dinner, we had been to church and come back, and the girls was walking along the road because we didn't have no ride. You had to walk everywhere. And they was talking and going on there, and I was riding the horse, and the horse was riding good and everything. And all of a sudden, we got to a little water hole there, and the horse didn't want to go across the water. So I kind of pulled up on the rein, you know. I wanted the horse to go anyway. And the horse kind of ran up in the air and leaped across the water. And then when she leaped across the water, my leg went through the stud. And the horse ran off with me. I guess she run about maybe 2 blocks. Drug my leg out of socket. Well, they took me out of there, and the boys got the horse stopped, and they taken me out of there, and I couldn't walk because my leg was out of socket. Well, that Monday, we couldn't see no doctor till that Monday anyway. And my dad took me up there to the man's house and told him my leg was hurt. And he taken me to the doctor down there. And the doctor looked at it, and he said, "Well, see, I don't think it's too much wrong with it." Papa said, "I think it's out of place." He said, "I don't think it's out of place." He said, "I'm going to give you some pain pills for him, and you take him on back to the house." Well, he gave me some pain pills, and I went on back to the house. And that Monday morning, they wanted me to go to the field. Now, my mother told him, said, "Well, he can't go to the field. He can't even walk." And he said, "Well, you let him stay at the house in a couple of days." Well, I stayed at the house a couple of days, and
You never did go get it set.
no, and she went down there, and my mother went down there, and she told him, said, "My son's leg is hurt real bad, so he can't even walk." She said, "I think you should take him to Jackson and let him look at it down there." He said, "No, I don't think that'll do any good. They just keep him here." So I stayed there. My leg got better, and I started walking on it. But it's out of socket, see. It was out of socket. And he said, "I'm not going to spend any money on him to get that leg fixed." So I worked around there and worked around there. By me being a big boy, I was a big, strong boy. They said, you know, I was an overgrown boy, you know. And my leg, my hip socket there was up against my leg, and it made another socket. That bone made another socket right in against my leg right there. And I went 40 years. I worked down there 20 years for nothing. And so I moved. I told my dad, I said, "I'm going to leave here, Papa." I said, "I ain't doing no good here, and you ain't either." So I went to Waterloo. I moved to Waterloo.
But Daddy, in the meantime, though, when you hurt your leg and you was walking around and your brothers went into the military, one of your brothers joined the Army.
He joined the Army.
Joined the Army. Daddy wanted to join the Army, but he couldn't because of that accident on his leg. And since that time, by the way, he's had 2 surgeries. He's had the leg, 2, whatever you call it, two balls and joints.
2 hip joints put in.
Joints put in since that time. He had to retire from his job of like about 25 years.
Yeah.
Because of that. And he did have another, like I said, he had
Another hip joint put in about 7 years ago.
About 7 years ago.
About 7 years ago.
But Uncle John joined the Army.
Yeah, he went to the Army off this man's plantation. And, well, I think he stayed in the Army about 3 or 4 years. And he got out. But at the meantime, they had a allotment they would send home to their families, you know, to keep some money they was paying them. And they would send money home. And when that money started coming, Mr. Hubbard, he said, well, said the check is coming. Told my mother, said the check is coming, saying you own my place. Say I'm gonna take that money. Mama said, I don't see why you can take the check. Say the check goes to me. Said that's my son. He said, yeah, but you own my place. He left me off on my place. Well, Mama couldn't do nothing about it. And when my brother came home, he asked Mama, said, Mama, you been getting my allotment? Said, I supposed to have been sending money home to you every month. Said, yeah, said, I've been getting it, but Mr. Harper's been getting that money. Said, that money belongs to him because you went off for this plantation. He said, well, oh, no, he can't do that, Mama. Said, you got to have that money. That's your money and my money. So he got around there and he got a ride to Jackson and he talked to some people down there about it. And they told him, said, well, if he been getting that money, he's going to have to give it up. Because that's your money and your mom's money. If you went to the army, that's your son. So finally some people's come out there, some army people's come out there. And they told that man, say, if you've been getting that boy's check, say, you got to give every bit of that money back. And he had been getting it over a year. So they took him back to Jackson with them. And when he got back, he brought Mama them back. He said, don't give her no check. Said, she wants cash money. All the cash money you done got. She wants that money and she's going to get that money. So they started giving money on that money from then on.
We have another cousin in our family who was a widow from World War II, and the plantation owner was getting her check. And until the day she died, that plantation's children were getting the checks. Daddy, you told me one time a story about a young man, a young boy who got into some trouble, and then it meant that all the boys in the family got killed.
Oh, yeah.
What's the story about?
That was about, they got into it about something or other. His brother was named Lou Arthur. And him and this white man got into it about something. I never found out what it would really be about. But at the time, he went to town and they done something to him. And they got in a fight down there. And he hit the white man or something or other. He hurt him pretty bad because he hit him in the head with something. And they got after him. And then they caught him that night. They flew an airplane out of Jackson, and he was in this house. He had a gun. He said, it's going to be me and them. That's what Dad said he said. And so he had no business hitting me, so he hit me in town first, and I hit him back. And so they flew over that house that night with an airplane, and they dropped things on that house until he came out of there. When he came out of there, they shot him and killed him. And then at that time, that next day, it's just a whole bunch of them come with white hats and things on, come out there. And they went in them pickups and things, them T-Malls and things was at that time. And they went to every Wade house was on that plantation and some of the other plantations.
It was all his brothers, all his relatives.
And I think the brothers, first cousin, all the boy kids, they killed them. Little bitty babies, they was boys too. They just take them and hit them up against the tree and kill them. Well, they went on with that. My mother took us to the house and wouldn't let us come out. We was on this other plantation. And this guy told them, said, well, I don't want y'all on my plantation because I don't want my black people killed because they works for me. So they've been around us. But all the weights and things was in that family. They say, well, it was too mean of people to live. So they killed all the boys.
Daddy, can you talk about the way your family loved God? Because I remember I was raised in a family that there's preachers, there's teachers, there's pastors, there's singers, there's everything that you think about in the black church is in our family. And I think that when I remember my grandmother most and my grandfather, it's about them thinking of singing songs and praying, and I think that was part of the things that got y'all through so many things.
Well, when we lived on Mr. Meek's place, my mother always took us to church every Sunday. She'd take us to go to Sunday school and church. And we would get out of field during the week, and nights we'd sit on the porch and sing songs, you know, and they would come up there. The white people would come from all around to hear us sing, just to hear us sing. They call them Negro spirituals, you know. And we would sing songs of joy and stuff like that, and they would sit out there and cry when we sang those songs, you know. Our mother's gone, 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 to never return no more. And that really got next to them, you know. And they would cry, and they would get up and go home. And, well, the next night, if we sung any more, they'd be right back there again. I said, Mama, why come they like our songs and we can't even go down there and play? He said, yeah, you played with Miss Hazel and Thomas. I said, yeah, but they don't let nobody else play with them. They kind of like to be to work around the house with them all the time, you know. And so we went on that year. So the next year, Thomas had grown up, and Thomas was 12 years old, and the next year, Hazel got 12 years old.
These are the white kids that you were playing with?
I would play with them, because I was working around the house down there, you know. And so one day, after they got 12 years old, I think her brother, Miss Catherine's brother, came up, and we was out there playing, me and Hazel and Thomas. And he told Thomas, said, Thomas, you can't play with him no more now. I said, you're 12 years old, and he got to say yes and no to you. He said, why? Why he got to say yes and no to me? I said, well, he's my friend. I like to play with him. And said, Hazel, you can't play with him no more, period. Say, you're 12 years old, and he got to say yes, ma'am, to you. Well, I got kind of worried about that. I never seen something like that, because I liked it Thomas, and he liked it me. So I went back, and I told Mama, I said, Mama, I said, they just run me home from down there. Say, Hazel and Thomas is 12 years old now, and I hate to say yes and no to him. She said, yeah, you have to do that now when they get 12 years old, you know. You have to say yes and no to him. Well, that kind of worried me about that. Any kind of worried Thomas. Thomas would slip around and come around the barn up there, and he'd bring his marbles, and I hate marbles. We'd shoot marbles and stuff around there. And so finally one day he caught him up there shooting marbles with me. And he told him, he got him by the hand, and he took him home. And I think he gave him a good lecture then, because he didn't come back no more. Because he liked it, the name of me calling him Mister then. They done built it into him that I had to call him Mister. And he kind of got the big head, you know, like kids do, you know. And that gave him the big head just like it did them. So he was happy with it. I couldn't play with him no more, though.
Daddy.
And that was the end of that.
And that was the end of that.
That was the end of that.
Daddy, you met my mama, and I remember the story about Mom and Daddy meeting, and my mother is really, really fair. And so there was a whole issue about color in the South, about bright-skinned people and dark-skinned people. But my mother never let us do anything. If we said anything about bright skin and dark skin in our family, you get a serious whipping. I mean, I can get a whipping about a lot of stuff, but But you can get a whipping about talking about color, for sure, when we were growing up, because my mother was from this very fair family. And they really, actually, who was it? Her family, Daddy's family, didn't believe that Mama was gonna marry him.
Oh, no, she didn't believe it. Well, I met her. We moved from that plantation. We finally moved from that plantation over kind of way away. It was too far for me to walk back and see my other girlfriend. So I had to find me another girlfriend. So I went to church that Sunday, and I knew a boy over there. And he said, "Hey, Willie," he said, "I know some girls, man. I want to take you over to their house." And my wife, she was kind of bright, you know. And she came out of that house, and I looked at her. I said, "Well, man," I said, "I don't know whether she want to talk to me." I said, "I don't know whether she want to talk to me." He said, "Oh, yeah, she'll talk to you." And her sister next to her was named Rosalie. And Rosalie come out. She had a lot of mouth. She started talking. And he said, "Now, this my girlfriend here." I said, "Okay." I said, "Where the one at I'm going to see, man?" I was waiting for her to come out. Finally, she went back there and she talked to our notion and coming out. And I met her. We started talking and we started going to church. I started meeting her at church, talking to her. And